Hello, I'm back live. Really, actually quite impromptu live this is. But do you know what? After my last live, I have had so many people message me who are really feeling the stuff that I've been doing. And it's kind of gone from, I'll be honest, it started off as like this Holy Ground mission in Valencia, which then moved to Ibiza and then to Avalon, and then it took me to Sintra. And I've started to really uncover some incredible stuff, and I need to share it really before I forget it. I am recording some of the missions, but I've actually done Gridwork now in mainland Spain. I've actually done it in Ibiza. It actually took me to Petra, Jordan, and I've now done a session on Avalon, which was absolutely huge, and that's what I really want to talk about today, because it's to do with the Merlin deception and the 7D inverted ray. It is to do with the poisoned Chalice well, and people are not really going to like hearing that. And I've actually spoke to a few grid workers today who said that they also heard that the Chalice well was poisoned, but when they got there, they didn't feel it. So they didn't really believe it. And what I was explaining today was that there is a distortion field over it, but I also found cloned parts and cloned DNA from King Arthur and Lady Guinevere underneath the tour, and that is what's making it really hard for people to detect the true feminine Christ codes and the true Christ codes beneath the distortion because of the clones. And the reason why I feel I could actually see the clones is because of the Azurite memories that I was speaking about in my last live. So it is all kind of fitting into place. And what I can see is this continuation from Petra in Jordan of the wounds that have been carried through the Sisters of Avalon, right? So before I go any further, I'm just going to take it back a little bit, right? I just want to give you a little thing of what I'm going to be talking about today, like the Merlin deception. There is a fake Merlin who is going around appearing to people, and he is a creepy trickster who will cause all sorts of trouble, and he's showing up everywhere, right? I found a secret second Stonehenge that I have been talking about for the last year, and no one believed me, right? I kept messaging people saying, there's a secret second Stonehenge, and Merlin's book is underneath it, and it's creating this big illusionary spell over Avalon, and it's keeping it chained into still in that kind of like dark age, away from the golden age of Avalon. No one really believed me, but I found it, right? And I've actually recorded the whole thing. So I'm going to share everything today because I feel like Mother Earth really wants me to share this with you. But first of all, before I go into that, I want to just share with you that about 8 months ago or 6 months ago, I mapped out my entire incarnation cycle, okay? Like an absolute psycho. You know, when you get those movies and you see those people who have lost their minds and they're like in the thick of the conspiracy, and they're on the wall and they've got all these pictures on, and they've got all these lines, and it turns into this like mad mind map. Well, I kind of did that, right? Because when I first awakened, I realised that I awakened and I was actually chained in, parts of me were chained in hell. I was chained in hell realms. And this is something that's really common, and if you are of a priestess lineage or you are going through initiations on this journey, chances are that this is happening to you as well, because one of the initiations of being an oracle is walking through the gates of hell, and that literally means getting up and walking through hell realms, like walking out of the gates of hell. And during this time, okay, as I woke up and I was awakening, and I realised that, oh my God, like I'm just trapped in all this darkness. And I really did share a lot of it, you know. I shared a lot of it with you. Yeah, I shared a load of it on my page about how I felt like I was trapped in hell realms, and I was attached to a suicide matrix for about 3 years. So as I was doing that, right, my journey took me to Avalon, because what I started to realise is that all my past lives had been reopened, right? And I was trapped in this kind of weird karmic cycle where Avalon was open, Atlantis was open, Lemuria was open, also ancient Egypt was open. I had Mayan lifetimes, okay, sacrificial Mayan lifetimes, and I had like ancient lifetimes from the Chinese dynasty, just before the fall of the Chinese dynasty. So it was all open, and no matter what, I tried to close one thing and it wouldn't work. And I was going around in this like healing loop or this trap for about 3 years. And what I realised is this is how they are trapping us in incarnation cycles, and this is how we are keep being enslaved into the false matrix. They're using timelines from the cataclysm in Atlantis. They're using timelines from Lemuria, Holocaust, massacre timelines, genocidal timelines. And then what they're doing is they've created these kind of wormhole tunnel systems that have linked them all. And they're linking them through the grids in the earth. So, for example, many of us that are here in Ibiza are just replaying Atlantean and Lemurian timelines over and over and over again. And that's why some of us feel like we're sometimes, clearing through these karmic loops, clearing through these wounds, but we're not actually getting anywhere. And what I realised is when I mapped out my entire incarnation cycle, I could see the way it was done, right? It's like there was so many links that if one was open, they was all open. You can't just close one thing. They all needed to be closed. And the one that I was missing was Morocco. And Morocco, I believe, was connected to Atlantis. It was the Western Sahara. So I had to go into the Western Sahara and I had to retrieve some of my codes, right, and break some lives from Atlantis. As I was doing this, I was taken to Avalon, and this was like a year ago, right? And I was seeing that there was clones of King Arthur and Lady Guinevere, and I was seeing that the Chalice well was poisoned, and I was also seeing that there was a secret Stonehenge, like a second Stonehenge, and it had like Merlin's book underneath, and it was being used, right? There was all this stuff going on, and at that time Merlin was coming to me a lot. He was an AI clone, and I actually have had this like weird dream about him over the last few days. So since I've gone into Jordan and I started to clear all the Madeleine Rose stuff, it took me to the Sisters of Avalon, and I started to have this like dream about 3 nights ago, and my dreams are often quite prophetic, and if I have a dream, often it's a message and I remember it, and I can astral travel quite consciously. I can go into different realms in my dreams, and I can do it consciously, like with my eyes open. It's not like I'm doing it unconsciously. I can actually intend to do it. And I was in this dream and I was holding a circle, and it was a woman's circle, and it was the Sisters of Avalon, but they were arguing, right? There was a little bit of an argument. The energy wasn't peaceful. They were kind of like shouting at each other. Now remember, dreams are symbolic. They were shouting at each other across the circle. And in the middle of the circle, I remember in this dream me trying to say, like, listen, we need to hold this space because they are going to come through that door. And as I do it, the door bursts open and these 4 men walk in. And one of them has got white hair, white eyebrows and a white beard. And he's so distinctive, right? And he doesn't look powerful. If anything, he looks weak. He looks a bit creepy. And I just knew it was Merlin, right? Anyway, the door blasts open and then he goes on, he walks in and he says, I need to go to the toilet. And he walks back out and he closes the door. And then I'm like, oh God. And then the dream jumps to another part. And in this dream now, I'm like compelled and I'm saying really stupid things. And I can't stop myself from saying stupid things. And the more stupid things I'm saying, the more the girls are laughing at me. And they're really starting to make fun of me. And it's like I'm almost taken over. And I'm just saying more and more stupid things and I can't stop myself. And then I kind of realised that the dream is showing me that there was an inception within the Sisters of Avalon. And what I believe is that Merlin actually went in. That door being open meant that there was a lifetime. There was actually there was an access point, a portal, a consciousness portal open that was allowing that energy through to this timeline. So I started to go on an Akashic journey and I went through and I started to retrieve the true memories, because if you go deep underneath the distortion fields, once you start to restore your Azurite template and you start to restore your light body and your template, you actually can get access to the halls of a mentee once you have restored your access codes and your genetic codes. So I went in and I started to retrieve the true memories, and that was what I could see. I could see this inception, this deception with Merlin, and the 7D inverted ray is connected to the Merlin energy. And if you go on Ascension Glossary, that is a really good place, just to check your downloads sometimes, just to see if you're in sync or if you're losing your mind, right? The Merlin energy is described as this kind of like Wall Street, masculine, Wolf of Wall Street energy, taking money, and it's a real deceptive energy, and it's actually linked to the financial matrix and a lot of the black magic grids that hold this financial matrix in place, which essentially keeps the poverty and slave class in place, Because the reason why we have poverty consciousness is because the elite are extracting from this planet. It's creating dead light, and it's creating karmic miasma, and it's creating all sorts of karmic exhaust. And then it's superimposed onto us human beings as slave class. And this is how we are kept in this slave consciousness. And this is how we are also kept enslaved in the matrix, in the distorted matrix, the enslavement matrix, or the phantom matrix. But, you know, it's not the only reason why, but it contributes to it. Because when this 7D ray is inverted, it's the 7D indigo ray, and it creates so much distortion. And this 7D ray is actually what we are needing to access that level of consciousness in that dimension. So, as I've been working with the Amethyst Order, with the Pegasi Merlin lineage, which is the true Merlin energy, not the distorted, stolen Merlin energy from this Merlin wizard, right? The true Merlin codes and energy. It comes from the Pegasi constellation, or the forefathers to the Merlion come from this Pegasi constellation. It's the Amethyst Order, it's the Violet Flame, and it's connected to the Celtic Grail lineages, which is connected to the Magdalene priestess lines and all the things that I've been working on this week. So, I went on a Gridwork mission and I filmed it, and I shared my Jordan Petra mission today on YouTube. My YouTube is shadow banned before I've even launched it. I haven't even told anyone about this YouTube channel, and it's already shadow banned, so you can't find me on there. So I know, you know, I'm just trusting that the right people that are coming to me are actually people that are needing to hear what I'm sharing, and that is what I've been shown so far. So I went on a Gridwork mission into Avalon, and I will share the video. And as I go in, the first place, surprisingly, that I am taken to is the tour. When I go into the tour, now, a lot of people have spoken. I follow so many groups, I speak to so many people, and I know so many people that are doing retreats, that go to these Mary Magdalene chapels, that go to Avalon and they go to the tour and they've gone there and they feel the codes and they feel the love. And trust me, the place does have a lot of divine energy. And that part of England has actually been restored, a lot of it, you know, Stonehenge. A lot of these places have actually been restored. However, light workers do come and do grid work, and, you know, they do come and start sending their magic to the land and actually sometimes mess things up a little bit. But, you know, generally there's people constantly working on that land and it is actually quite restored. So I was quite surprised when I had to go there because I didn't think there was anything left to do there. But what I was taken to was deep underneath. There is a distortion field and not everyone has been able to pick it up, and I'm not really sure why I can pick it up. Maybe it is because maybe in a past life I had something to do with putting it there, or maybe it's because I can retrieve the true memories for the halls of Amenti, or maybe it's because, you know, I actually have restored my template to 15D. I don't know what it is, but I could see this distortion field, right? And I could see a cloned Arthur and a cloned Guinevere, and their DNA was underneath, right? And there was a gate underneath to a lower fallen underworld realm. I've seen that gate before. I've actually tried to do stuff with that underworld gate before, and Anubis came, and I ended up getting myself in all sorts of drama. Last year, it was probably one of the most heaviest times, biggest initiations of my life, and I was like completely like, what the fuck happened? But, you know, I have seen that before. So as I went underneath, I could see like cloned. There's blood and there's DNA, but there's cloned blood and DNA underneath, right? And the only reason why I believe I can see the cloned stuff is because I've worked my DNA from the cloning memory banks and military bases, and from all of the genetic records and memory records across all time and space. That's the only reason why I think I can see that, you know, because I couldn't see it before, but there was a little inkling that it was there. So as I went in underneath, I started to clear the clones, and I started to retrieve the DNA and the blood, and I also started to wipe their DNA and blood off of the military banks and off of the memory records. Lately, I've been guided to wipe. Lately I've been given the keys to access to wipe their ascended masters' DNA from the memory banks as well. So as I'm clearing. As we start to clear this is going to really benefit everyone, because the reason why a lot of us can't tell the difference between these cloned ascended masters and the true Christ and divine feminine codes and the distorted ones is actually because, you know, there is a distortion over the top where all their DNA is being cloned. But the more that we take their DNA back, the more that distortion starts to break and dissolve, and the more that we can start to recognise truth. What is truth and what is not truth? You know, what are the true codes and what are not the true codes? So I started to clear that in the land underneath, and then I started to get taken to the Chalice well and the water temple on the corner. And immediately, I mean, I don't know what it is. Other people don't see it, or maybe you do, but that Chalice well to me has always looked not right, okay? It's always looked very distorted and very poisoned, and it just, I know there's so many Mary Magdalene devotees and Rose lineage priestesses who know their shit, who have been doing this stuff for a really long time, who have dedicated their lives to the teachings, to the books, but at the end of the day, some stuff can't be taught and can't be taught in a book, and it doesn't matter how many scriptures or how many Bible passages or how many books or testaments you read, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have access to that truth, right? We can see that with the religion. We can see that with everything. We can see that with the absolute annihilation of the collective memory records of human history. So, you know, there's always many truths and there's always new truths that come out. So for me, it's always felt like a really distorted place, and it hasn't felt like the true codes have been there for a really long time. So as I started to clear underneath the land and I started to go into this chalice well and see it, I could actually see that it wasn't really coming from there. And then I got guided to find the secret Stonehenge that I've been talking about. And it's not a secret, right? It's not a secret Stonehenge. That's the funny thing. You can find it on Google. But the problem is, whenever I talk whenever I hear these talks about Avalon and sacred sites and, you know, these Avebury stone circles and Stonehenge, no one ever talks about this place. And it's the original Stonehenge. It's where the stones came from originally, the original site. And it's in Wales. And actually there is an old poem, and some of the oldest Arthurian legends around King Arthur and Merlin actually talk about Merlin taking a band of knights and soldiers to this place in Wales where there was a magical stone, okay? And that is exactly what he wanted to do. So there is actually records of this place. So I started to map it out and I found it, right? And then I found it and I linked it to Avalon. And then I remember last year when I was working through this stuff, Merlin's cave kept coming up. So then I mapped Merlin's cave, and lo and behold, it created a perfect equilateral triangle. A perfect equilateral triangle. And then I realised that this was actually what was actually keeping this distortion in place. So when I went to the Stonehenge, underneath was a book, Merlin's book, but it wasn't his power. It was the power that he'd stolen from the Sisters of Avalon. It was their original codes of power, and he had placed it. It had been placed underneath this location, and oh God, what's coming through is that's a lot to do with what he was looking for, the magic stone, you know. So he put it there, and then when I went to his cave and I looked in his cave, there was a Wesser wormhole tunneling system, black hole tunneling system, letting in beings from other realms and dimensions and universes. You know, when I talk about the galactic wars and during the Lyran wars, that there were holes ripped in the time-space continuum and the planet fell. And during the Atlantis cataclysm, they started to do work on the, they started to do a lot of work on the grids, on the crystals underneath the grids. They started to mess with it, a bit like what they're doing with CERN. They're trying to mess with Mother's dark matter template, and the dark matter template is the cosmic womb. It is where all creation comes from. They're trying to steal creation codes, is what they're trying to do, which is what they've always tried to do. They've always tried to steal our organic genetic creation codes that are within our holographic DNA template, and that is what this is all about, because that's what we have. These organic creation codes that come from organic God, life consciousness, you know, and this is what they are taking. This is what they're trying to do. And what I saw was there was a tunnelling system, because after the Atlantis cataclysm, Thoth and a load of the Luciferian Knights, they created a wormhole Wesser tunnelling system, a black hole tunnelling system. And that is what I believe is creating this time loop and this time false. It's like an inverted AI false reality timeline projection and distortion. The false timelines are coming from this wormhole tunnelling system. I think that's how they're looping all the timelines, and I think that's how they're keeping us chained in this incarnation cycle and siphoning our energy by just keeping us here in forced reincarnation. Because when we die, we're supposed to get the option to go and explore the universe, right? We're supposed to have the option to go to other galaxies and other star systems and other universes and worlds. But instead we're being forced to come back to Earth and live out our ancestral and karmic trauma over and over again, so that they can siphon and live off of our life force and steal our creation codes, right? And what they do is they funnel them off through the Black Star Armageddon network. They funnel them off to their Black Phantom Matrix, to their own place where they are, you know. So this is what's happening. And I can see this tunnelling system in Merlin's cave, right? I can see this tunnelling system in Merlin's cave. So I dismantled it. I started to close the wormhole tunnelling system and I started to lock it down, and then I burnt the book, okay? I burnt the book, and then what it started to do is it started to clear, and then it started to clear all the way down through into the water temples, and it started to actually clear the Chalice well, the poison Chalice well waters. Now, this was 48 hours ago I did this, so the waters have been clearing for the last 2 days, if not already clear, you know. So this has actually happened 48 hours ago when I done it. I'm only sharing it now because I've actually been onto more stuff from there. So that's when I noticed the 7D inverted ray is coming from there, and that's how they're anchoring it in. And not only are they anchoring it in from there, right, that triangle, right, that's like Merlin's cave, the Tor, you know, Chalice well, going up to the second Stonehenge, the secret Stonehenge, or the magic rock that Merlin was searching for, where his book was under. That triangle is within a bigger triangle, and the bigger triangle is the Roslin Chapel, Valencia, Ibiza, and Sintra triangle reversal that I've been sharing, okay, It was another triangle within that triangle. This is what I feel is keeping a lot of the red cube matrix stuff in place. This is where I feel a lot of the princess codes are coming from in Sintra. I've got, right, because I work in a multi-dimensional way, I've got all these different dimensions and timelines and locations open at the same time, and I'm working on all of them, and they're all linking together. And so what I'm trying to do is share the information with you in a way that's tangible so it doesn't get too confusing. So I'll come back to Sintra after because I haven't actually finished that. But, you know, in Avalon, this is what I found in Avalon. Okay, so then I started to activate a Venus temple. There was something else going on that I can't even remember now that I want to share. But luckily I've recorded the whole Gridwork video, so I can share that with you and you'll probably see it. I'm probably going to post it tomorrow because it needs to be edited a little bit. But this black hole tunnelling system, okay, so there was another wound on the masculine and feminine that was coming from there as well. And it was also connected to this mother wound, okay, this mother wound that we have been talking about. So this was also a wound on the divine feminine from the masculine, because really and truly the masculine false distorted Merlin archetypes stole that divine creation magic from the Sisters of Avalon. The Sisters of Avalon are the continuations of the teachings of the Mary Magdalene lineage that I was working on in Petra and Jordan and on the Holy Grail. So this Holy Grail spell is literally keeping this all in place, right? The very first spell that I broke is literally keeping all of this in place. So then what I started to do is I started to connect in, and I started to connect to Benedictine monks. I started to connect into Benedictine monks, right? And I couldn't really figure out what was going on. But then the next day I started to feel this like chain on my right wing connected to Michael, the Michael family. And I was like, what is going on? I thought I cleared a lot of my stuff to do with toxic and distorted masculine energy. I thought I cleared all that and I couldn't figure out what it is. And it's so weird, right? Because my granddad, I don't actually know who my real granddad is, because my mum was, she was born and it was a fling, you know, he was married. So in those days in Ireland, my family's Irish and Chinese. That's what my ancestry is, Irish and Chinese. In those days, she was born out of wedlock, so she never really got to meet who her real father was. And it was only today, I mean, I'm 43 years old and I've never bothered to ask who my real granddad is. Because I'll be honest, I've never really cared. Because he didn't bring up my mum, and so I didn't really care. So even though like I was working on all my ancestral stuff, and I find that really weird that I never actually bothered to even check and see who he was. So today, weirdly, I don't know why, but I just rung up my own and I was like, do you know anything about my real granddad? And she said, yeah, his name was this, and he was Irish, and his last name was Benedict. And I was like, that's weird. I'm working on the Benedictine Monks. Yeah, it always comes up at the right time, doesn't it? That's how you know you're being guided, right? This is why we don't need to fear anything. And that's why when I go in and do these heavy places, I don't have any fear anymore. My heart is pure and I know nothing can mess with me. So once the fear is gone, nothing can fuck with you. Do you know what I mean? And because I've been guided so beautifully along this journey that, and like you say, everything comes up at the right time. Yeah, Karina, it does. It's actually crazy. So today, yeah, I was like, hold on a minute. I'm working on this Benedictine monks. This is something weird. And then I saw that the Sisters of Avalon and the Benedictine monks continued the Celtic Grail Church teachings of the Magdalene Rose line and the Christ Templars. And I have been clearing Grail and Celtic massacres off the land and reawakening Celtic old churches and crystal cathedrals that were dedicated to Mary Magdalene, right? I was like, you can't make this shit up. So I was like, okay, let's do this. So today I was like, oh my God, this is connected to my ancestral line and my grandfather's line. And then I started to go into it and I started to see that it was actually connected to that. And as I started to go in and clear that, you could see that there was so much trauma on the true Benedictine monks that were the true keepers of this sacred wisdom and knowledge. And they were like taken over by the Catholic Church once again. And I could see so many of them being burnt at the stake. I could see so much trauma. I could see so many massacres. I could see so many villages being wiped out, monasteries being wiped out. And we do know that Henry VIII and a lot of these... Henry VIII wasn't just a king who beheaded his wives' heads. He was someone who actually enforced a lot of the eradication of the monasteries, of the true Benedictine teachings, of the true Christian teachings, the Celtic teachings. He was a big advocate. He was a king. It's the false kings of tyranny. It's the distorted... Because a Magi king and queen is just somebody who has a true king. They're wisdom keepers. They lead their kingdom. They don't rule a kingdom of tyranny. They lead it as being a wisdom leader. That's the true king and queen codes, right? Like King Arthur, like people, he was brave and they looked up to him. And, people that look after their people. People elect a leader because they are wise and they have walked that path, and they are leaders because they walk that path first. These are the true codes, the true king and queen codes, not tyranny, not control, not pillaging, not taking over other lands and kingdoms. These are really distorted king and queen codes, and all you need to do is look at the kings and queens of today to see that that is false kings of tyranny, right? And you can see with Lady Diana that her Diamond Grail DNA blood was used as breeding programs, because they want them creation codes, remember. We have the creation codes and they don't have the creation codes. So they need to use the feminine to breed. They need the feminine. They need our DNA to do that. And this is what it was showing me. And this is what it's been breaking down. Now, we know that, don't we? It's pretty obvious. But we don't know the intricacies of the bloodlines and the very first seeds and shackles, the very first bloodlines that tie up the points in our ancestral lineage where these shackles were placed on our bloodlines, where these shackles were placed on the land, when these spells were cast, the very true first times. So this is what it was uncovering. And as I was seeing these monks, I was seeing dragons being dismembered again. So I started to clear that. My crown's on, literally. I feel like my crown right now as I'm speaking has gone into like all starlight and stars, and it's going out like this. It feels so weird, right? So, I was seeing these dragons being dismembered, and I was starting to bring the dragon codes up, and I was starting to pull those creation codes back up, and I was starting to ripple in it through the Benedictine monk bloodline, through the lineage, and I was starting to access keys and codes of the true sacred teachings that were coming back, and they were being returned to the original bloodlines, which means the people that hold the original codes, that are the original bloodlines, that wisdom will start to awaken within the DNA because it was being anchored through the morphogenetic race fields and the collective. After this, what I started to see, is I went downstairs for a minute because I was like, oh God, I feel a bit dizzy. Let me go downstairs and let me just let things settle. Because every time we clear this stuff, there's a lot of demons attached to every spell. There's a lot of entities, there's a lot of implants, and it takes quite a while to clear. And sometimes you can be left kind of like the timelines are moving. I went downstairs and I just thought, let me go and get a drink of water. And as I did, this little bumblebee came in and it got trapped behind the sliding doors. Don't you just hate it when that happens? Like, it was quite distressing for me because she was going crazy and she was stressed and she got stuck behind the doors, and I was trying to free her and I thought I was making it worse and I didn't know what to do. So I started to, I just got her out eventually. And I went back upstairs and I was like, how is this connected to the divine feminine? And last night in bed, Ephesus was coming up. And during the time that I was actually doing this stuff about a year ago, Ephesus was coming up, and the bees, and the sacred geometry of the cosmic womb. And what is the cosmic womb? Dark matter template. There we go again. And what I was seeing was like the bees last year, that they actually, the feminine bee or the masculine bee flies up and pierces the veil. It's the way that they mate, right? This isn't my wisdom. This is something that I learned from a bee oracle who I follow, I can't remember her name. She was talking about this, and she was talking about how the bees, the sacred geometries of creation, that the bees fly up and they pierce the veil, and when they mate, they go up. And I was like, what they've done is they've messed with the timelines, right? Which means they've messed with creation codes and distorted creation codes, which means they've distorted the cosmic womb and the sacred geometry. Somewhere there's something they're distorted, because our bees are in trouble. We know the bees are in trouble. We know the bees need help. And I kept having these bees coming to me, and they were saying, like, help. And I could see that there was something there. I could see that there was something going on there, and it was something to do with the cosmic womb. It was something to do with the collective cosmic womb, the womb's Akash, the cosmic womb's Akash, and also connected to the sacred geometries of the true creational codes and the masculine. And so I came back upstairs after, and I was like, there's something going on here. There's something going on with the feminine. And I was just like, what is it? And then I realised it was my granddad's mum. So my granddad, I'm doing his father's line, the monks, where his surname came from. But what about his mother's line? And then I saw this woman with her son, and she was shielding him, and all the villages were getting burnt outside, and there was so much trauma there. And I started to realise that, when you mess with the true creation codes, it's messing with Divine Mother, and you can't mess with the masculine and not the feminine. One thing can't be distorted and the other isn't, Once you start to mess with those true creation codes, which is more or less what they did, which is what's happening here with the Avalon book, Merlin coming in and distorting it, anchoring in a reversal, anchoring in an inverted 7D ray. What starts to happen is these codes start to get distorted, and it started to distort the cosmic womb and the dark matter template of the earth. And what the Divine Mother was asking me to do was to bring healing to that through this. So I can't even remember I did that, actually. I started to work through that, and I started to restore that. And as I started to do that, I started to get guided that Ephesus is the next place that I need to work on. So as you can see, I'm getting taken on this journey, and it's actually the feminine line, and it's restoring cosmic mother, divine mother consciousness to this planet, because we have been severed from her through dark mother reversals, through fallen mother networks, through Black Madonna networks, through the Roman Catholic Church, and the desecration and the degradation of Divine Mother and the Divine Feminine. My heart hurts as I'm talking about this, right? I've got this throbbing pain in my heart. Through the actual extraction of Divine Mother and those creational codes, and the extraction and the usage of her dark matter template, which is basically a raping of Divine Mother, right? That's what's happening when we're pillaging the earth of its resources. That's what's happening when we are taking what's not ours. That's what's happening when we're not working in the laws of exchange and the divine, the feminine laws of receptivity. This is what happens when we are taking from the right, and the magnetic and electric and the currents get mixed up. Somebody's trying to mess with my voice as I say this. This is what happens, and it's this taking of the Divine Mother, and she is not having it. And so the way to do this is not to be like, oh my God, you know what? Look at all these elites. They're so powerful. We can't do nothing. My little voice can't do anything. And oh my God, look at these wars. And it's okay for them to just do all this weather manipulation and just wipe out sacred lands. No, it's not. And going in and trying to fight them is not actually going to work, right? But if we can see past the deception, the illusion and the distortion, and start to step into what we really are, which is real divine creator beings, God, cosmic sovereign law, manifest in form, made in the image of God, that we are divine. And when we witness something, God witnesses something. And when God witnesses something, that is light. And that light shines out the darkness, and that illuminates all of the shit and the shadow underneath, all of the lies, all of the distortion, and it allows us to really step into our power, right? When we actually start to do that, that is so powerful. That is so powerful, right? So by sharing this wisdom and knowledge, I don't need anything back from anyone. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to keep sharing this stuff because that's what I need to do. And it's not because I need you to like be like, oh, Jade, you're amazing, you're doing all this stuff. Or, oh, Jade, like, I want to pay you to teach me. Or, Jade, no, none of that. The reason why I'm sharing this is what's coming through now is because actually it is a witnessing. Because every person who hears my words and hears this frequency and is within this field, everyone that sees this video, everyone that hears this knowledge and wisdom, it is going to go into your consciousness, and that is going to be a witnessing, and that witnessing is going to allow whatever I've just cleared to completely die off and crumble. It is. So that's all I need to do is I just need to get on here and I just need to share all the stuff that's going on, and you know, people will believe me. Some people will think I'm a nutter. Some people won't like it. They'll be like, there's no way that the Chalice well is poisoned. There's no way that there's distorted codes in Avalon. I feel the love. You know, there's no way that this is going on or that's going on. And that's okay, because those people aren't ready to hear that work yet. But as I'm saying this, and as I've been doing this over the last 48 hours, the distortion fields are breaking. The spells are breaking. The illusion is shattering, you know. The underworld is coming up. It's coming up to be seen. And so at the end of the day, you're probably going to see it. All this stuff in this video that I'm talking about, you might even be able to tap in and actually see now. If you are working in Avalon, if you have been working with Merlin energies, if you do have King Arthur, Lady Guinevere timelines that you're trying to heal within your karmic records or with your ancestral line, if you do have Mary Magdalene Rose trauma, or if you do have Christ Templar trauma or dragon lineages or any of this stuff, or you're going through a dark initiation, I can guarantee you that your timelines are connected to this. And when you tune in, you're going to probably see different answers over the next few days. Because these distortion fields, they dissolve, but the spells take 2 or 3 days to break. Someone sent me something today, and it was in the Canary Islands, which is where I'm going next. Like, actually, I'm going to fly there next and go there and put my feet on the ground. You know, I am not going to do any, remote work there. All the stuff I've been doing is remote, other than Valencia. I actually went boots on ground, but the Canary Islands, people are already awakening codes yesterday and today of Atlantis codes and connecting Atlantis to the Chalice well. So already that's so strange, because I'm doing the work here and there's another team of grid workers and I don't even know them and they're doing similar work, and it's literally the next day. So you can see that everything is working in perfect divine order, you know. I'm just going to, I don't know, someone actually meant to send me a request to get in this video, or if you've actually pushed it by accident. Okay, so please feel free to ask any questions, because I do these quite impromptu, as and when I feel. I just want them recorded. I want them on my page. It's not really because I expect loads of people to jump on, but I know some of you do jump on and jump off, so do feel free to ask questions if you have any. Okay, so what I'm now being guided to do is to go into Ephesus next, right? And I've been wanting to go. I went to Turkey last year and some really heavy stuff opened up for me. But Ephesus, the bees are connected, right? Mother Mary, that is her kind of place. They called it her, you know, her city. But she was a high priestess of Ephesus. But you know what? When I just went online and had a little look, there's a Mother Mary Catholic shrine. What are the chances that when I go into Ephesus, there is some of Mother Mary's lineage bound? Or there is something to do with that lineage bound? I can guarantee it, right? Before I even go in there, I know that's what I've got to go and do, which is, I'm probably going to do it later. You know, so this is something that's coming up at the moment. And I guess I was like, I do try and avoid doing these lives. I'm not going to lie, because they take quite a lot of my energy, because a lot of the time I don't plan anything. Like you can see, I've got like a tiny little thing there that just says Merlin, incarnation cycle, Avalon, just so I don't forget anything. But generally, you know, I just end up channeling a lot of the stuff that comes through and sharing. So I do find them quite tiring. So, you know, I am trying to do them as much as I can, but I do put them off. I do procrastinate on my physical stuff quite a lot. And today God was like, no, you need to go on now, like right now, and share this. So I'm guessing there's a reason why I had to jump on now and share this now. But yeah, that's where I'm being guided to go to next. Just before I finish, I want to talk about the Princess Code and where I believe this is coming from on the planet and what I'm planning on doing next. And, you know, what... Okay, this is mad, right? This is connected to Merlin as well. So I did a gridworking regression with somebody about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and it was an Avalon one. And it actually wasn't of the light. There was a lot of distortion and stuff got in because Merlin was in it. And he gave me this little mirror, and it turned out to be like a bit of a dark mirror. Like if someone sets a spell on you, it can rebound it back. And that's not really like, I don't know. He gave me some stuff that was a bit weird, right? And that's when Merlin, the dark Merlin, started coming in. So when I actually did this Gridwork session 2 years ago, and this is why we have to be really careful with Gridwork, and it's so important that you do it with guardians, and it's so important that we work with the law of one. It's so important that you know how to work and call in the guardians, that you know how to activate a 12D shield, that you actually know how to, you know, you've been through initiation to know how to cast out demons, and you know how to like get rid of them, and you know how to open portals and offer safe transit for souls. You know, this is something that I think I want to be sharing, and I'm going to teach. I'm going to create a course to teach this, because I think there's so many people doing grid work that don't know how to work with the guardians and the free founder flame, and don't know how to, you know, proper shield themselves. And I didn't for a long time, and I was doing grid work thinking I was helping, and I was making things worse. And also I was getting a lot of psychic attack as well. And what happened was, we did this, and it was showing me that what Merlin was saying, and there is a link, there was a little bit of truth in this Gridwork regression that I did, and it was saying that, you know, a lot of the saviour, princess, saviour programming. Now, I'm someone who's worked through a lot of saviour programming. I've always attracted men that need saving, right? I've always wanted someone to come and save me. I'm sorry, but we've all got to admit that, you know, the princesses and the fairy tale stories, like, people like to blame Walt Disney for messing them up, but, you know, it goes way before that. And a lot of these myths and these fairy tales, what this regression was showing me was that they actually encode your DNA. Now, this was just as I started to like work with actual magic, right? It was when I started to realise that I was elemental, that I had fairy magic, mermaid magic, elemental, goddess, priestess magic, dragon magic. There's different kinds of magic, and not everybody has magic. We all have our own creation magic, but not everybody has certain codes to do with the elementals. And the elementals, you know, that magic that comes with elemental kingdoms. So as I started to awaken these elemental codes, I started to work with real magic for the first time. And I was being shown that I was here to clear slavery imprints. And I kind of knew what it meant, because I was doing that. I was clearing a lot of saviour programming. I was clearing a lot of, you know, like, people-pleasing programming and self-worth issues for people in their karmic template throughout their throughout their karmic and their ancestral cycles, right? And I knew that we re-encode our DNA by our programming, because when I was reprogramming consciousness, and I recode DNA, that's what I do, I was working in the different levels of consciousness and the ancestral, collective, past life, soul life history consciousness. And a lot of it was to do with the programming. So I knew that myth and fairy tale stories did program us and could encode our DNA. Now, when I went into Sintra last week, I started to see, right, now I know that there is pearl lineage trauma there and breeding trauma. I started to see princesses being taken down the initiation well, which is a Templar, Luciferian Templar Knights, Freemason Knights initiation well. And it was made to model Dante's 9 realms of hell. So, you know, it's like, I was seeing these princesses, these girls being walked down, being sacrificed at the bottom in initiation. I was seeing these princesses being brought down and made to marry and breed with dark kings and dark royal bloodlines. And this is connected to the clam and pearl. And funny enough, Sintra's coat of arms has the clam and pearl on it, which is connected to the Spencer bloodline, which is connected to Lady Diana, and which is connected to the true Essene lineages being distorted with the false kings and queens and bred with the dark nobility, right? Now, when you go to Sintra, it's all fairy tale castles. And I was seeing fairy tales like Rapunzel. And it's so weird, because I've got like this long hair. And I was seeing myself as Rapunzel. It was so weird. And this knight coming up to save her. And my flatmate's German, and she was telling me the true Grimm's story of Rapunzel. And the true story is the witch takes the daughter for herself of the neighbour, And then what she does is the knight climbs up you know Rapunzel, the story, the knight climbs up the tower to save Rapunzel. But our story is that he saves her, but the true story is the witch slits his throat and he dies, right? So it's actually quite a really dark fairy tale. And a lot of these fairy tales like that we listen to, that were made, like the Little Mermaid and Rapunzel, they're actually quite dark and twisted, the original ones, right? They're really actually quite dark and twisted. And even when you look at the Little Mermaid, like selling your voice for legs to meet a man, like there's so many twisted things with these fairy tales, right? So as I was going into Sintra, I was seeing like Snow White. I saw Snow White get a throat slit. I saw like Rapunzel and like the knight, and I saw like all these twisted fairy tales, really, really twisted fairy tales. And I was like, what the fuck is going on here? This is really weird. I was like, this is really, really, really weird. I don't know what's going on here. But I knew that I've been in fairy tale realms. And I guess when we are fairies and mermaids and we're existing in different realms, of course there's going to be fairy tale stuff going on, right? And I have gone back into some Lemurian lifetimes where there's like wicked queens being married to my dad, and I got made to like the evil queen took over and all this stuff. And I guess these fairy tales, they must come from old myth and legend, right? There's something in it. There's always something in it. So in Sintra, I believe that Sintra, or something around there, is a motherboard portal to this red cube matrix, right? And I am seeing, I know I shouldn't be talking about this on Instagram, but I don't give a fuck anymore. I actually don't. I'm just going to share it, and I'm just going to trust that God's got me and I'm protected, and I just don't care anymore. If my account gets shut, it gets shut. Like, I honestly cannot keep hiding all the stuff that I do just to keep Instagram or to keep people happy. Like, I'd rather no one followed me and I just spoke to myself than talk crap on it and not speak about anything. Do you know what I mean? So this is like what I'm sharing, and maybe Instagram I'll get banned for sharing a lot of this stuff. Maybe I won't. Let's see what happens, right? But I was seeing all this stuff, and I was seeing like this princess code coming from there. And the princess code, I shared it on my stories about 4 days ago. And it's this narcissistic, entitled code that is in 95% of human beings, especially women. And it's very much about using our sexuality to get things. I see it a lot in the manifestation community. I see it a lot in the goddess community. I'm a goddess, and yeah, I'm entitled to this. And, you know, I see it. And I see it a lot in, like, goddesses who are just, you know, of course we want to embrace our sexuality, and of course we want to be feminine, and we want to, like, sexual energy is nothing to be ashamed of. But it shouldn't be used to just please, right? And this is the distortion. And this princess code, right, if you go on my highlights, on my store, underneath on my profile, you will see a tab that says Gridwork, and in it I share all of this stuff. So if you are interested, you can go on there and look, and it's one of the last 2 I shared. But it's this princess code, right? And it is coming through, and it's creating sexual misery. It's creating relationship misery in women. And it actually manifests from the quantum realms into physical as sexually transmitted diseases. Now, anything that is manifesting in the physical, any illness or disease, originally starts off in the energetic, in a higher level of consciousness. So it would start off in the sexual level of consciousness, emotional level of consciousness, mental level of consciousness, you know, all these different levels of consciousness that we have. In order for something to manifest in our physical body, the block is really deep by the time it manifests in the physical body, you know. Normally when we get sick, or like cancer, for example, when I had the lump, it is your body telling you that there's something big going on. And by the time it's got to that point, it's really bad and you need to get it sorted, you know what I mean? It's just a warning signal. It's just a red flag. It's actually nothing to be really afraid of. It's only the programming and our lack of knowledge that makes us afraid, right? Cancer, I posted that yesterday, that I think Simple Organic shared, and she's right, it's a multi-dimensional disease. Anyway, it's not what I'm talking about. But when something starts to filter down, it's already really big. So these are sexual, these are divine feminine blocks, they are distorted codes. They come in and they promote misogyny, they promote sexual misery, they promote lack of sacredness around our sexuality, they promote a lot of dark Baphomet, satanic energy that is used through dark mother reversals, which is exactly what I've been talking about. So it's so interesting because I could see that it was connected to those codes. I could see that there was stuff going on, that there was rituals being done to women in those worlds, in Sintra, and that is connected to Atlantis. and that is connected to the cosmic divine egg, and the cosmic divine egg is connected to the true creation codes, yeah, and the pearl lineage and the pearl wisdom is connected to the diamond Grail DNA bloodlines, and the pearl is connected to this divine feminine, and it is like all of our lifetimes, you know, all our wisdom, all the lessons that we learn, not only in our light lifetimes but our fallen lifetimes as well. Many of us have been fallen in past lives. Many of us who are now working in high realms of light actually have fallen in previous lifetimes and worked in low realms of hell. You know, you can't hold a high amount of light if you've never held a large amount of darkness. It's actually impossible. So you'll find that most people that do work with high frequencies of light, they have been working in low frequencies and realms of darkness as well. So, you know, that is polarity. That is the law of polarity. It's a natural law, and it is the way it is. And there's nothing that can avoid that. And that's why I always can't be around people that talk about love and light and talk about, you know, blessings to all the time. Of course, that's good. But honestly, there needs to be witnessing, and there needs to be acknowledgement of some of this distorted stuff that's going on the planet. Because if we don't witness and we don't acknowledge it, it can't die. And if it can't die, we can't be reborn into the new earth. This is a fundamental process that cannot be avoided. It is something that needs to be witnessed. It is something that needs to be seen, and it's something that actually needs to be acknowledged. And whether you like it or not, it's happening. That's the message that's coming through now. You know, some of the stuff that's going to be shared, people aren't going to like it. It's going to really ruffle some feathers, and it's actually going to really test a lot of beliefs. And it's actually, what I'm getting is there's actually another wave of awakening coming. There is another wave of awakening coming through, and generally with a wave of awakening comes heartbreak, grief and loss, because that heart needs to crack open to allow that light, more light into the God atom seed, which is in the 8th chakra, which is in your thymus. That God seed, okay, that is the connection to the God fields, the source Rishi God. That is like all the love of the universe, and everything that exists within that tiny atom is in your 8th chakra, in the thymus, in the higher heart. So in order for that to really activate, there needs to be a cracking open, a complete shattering of the heart, right? And a lot of people that have been on this journey and been following this feminine stuff for a really long time, there's going to be a really big awakening, another wave of awakening, because a lot of this distortion is going to actually be quite heartbreaking and quite sad for a lot of people. However, it is necessary and it is needed for the illusion and the distortion to fully dissolve. And so that's something that you know, people are just going to have to come to terms with. And I think people are feeling it already. I'm getting a lot of messages from you of people saying that they are feeling this already. So I am going to, this is what I want to do. I just wanted to get that out, right? Because this is something that's ongoing. I started off working on the Holy Grail in Valencia, and then it turned to the whole of Spain, and then it went to Sintra with this fairy tale stuff. And then it ended up going up into Avalon, and then I ended up going into the heart of Avalon and the sisters and the Merlin stuff. And now I feel like there's been a dismantling through what I've done of the 7D inverted ray. I feel like there is, right? I'm going to tune in properly again tomorrow to see if it has completely been dismantled, or if it needs another session, or if there's something else that needs to be done. But I would love to know what some of you guys are getting who do this work. I'd love to know what you're getting on there. Also, yeah, Petra Jordan, there has been another Venus activation. I've awakened another Venus temple in Avalon as well. So that's 2 Venus temples that have been awakened and activated in the last week. I wondered what that was then. These little balloons going up. I don't even know where they came from. Okay, so every time you guys push something, little hearts or balloons come up. So yeah, Ephesus is the place I'm going to next, and I feel this is really connected to, I feel like this is going to bring a healing through the bees, through the Mother Mary lineage, through the Mary lines. I feel like this is going to bring so much collective healing. I'm feeling a real mother wound healing. And this isn't just about mother wound as in our mothers. This is like mother wound as in divine mother. You know, that we are her daughters of the earth, and she is also our mother, but we are also the mother to the earth, because we are looking after her. So there's this real witnessing going on and a real mother wound healing going on that is absolutely massive. And it's not just happening in the divine feminine collective, but the masculine. But there are Eros Gamos union codes rippling out, like the distortion between the masculine and the feminine, which is a lot of what this princess code is about as well. This is really starting to come together. This is really exciting stuff, right? Like, this is really, really, really exciting stuff. This is life-changing stuff. And some of the things that I've been seeing over the last, like, week, some of the stuff I've been seeing is more amazing than I ever could have thought or imagined was possible, you know? It's like, literally. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave that there. I feel like I've done enough talking. I'm excited about this and I feel quite energised by that chat. Normally I'm quite tired by the end of these. But yeah, if you have anything that you want to share with me regarding this, or if you've had any insights about this as well, please share with me. I'd love to know. And if you are interested in learning how to do this work as well, please let me know. Put me your email. I'll add you onto my news list or my newsletter list. And also, if you are interested in learning how to do this safely, please let me know. I'm going to be doing a weekend masterclass next week. So, yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. And, yeah, have a lovely